Well, here you have a small sample, a very small sample of Nazi uh, visual propaganda, which, I mean, all those posters actually tell the same, exactly the same story, but that was also the idea of Nazi propaganda, to repeat and repeat and repeat the same story. Already in Mein Kampf, Hitler gave that advice about propaganda, that strong propaganda is a constant repetition of the same, in very simple terms, in very visual terms, in a way of making it visual in speeches. And as he said one day, he's not speaking to professors, he's speaking to the masses. Now, here, I mean, you have several films, several posters which show a film called Der ewige Jude, The Eternal Jew, which was shown all over occupied Europe, which was produced in 1940 under Goebbels' direct supervision. Goebbels was not the film director, but he supervised the work and showed the rushes to Hitler. And Hitler demanded changes so that a film that Goebbels hoped to have finished in, I think, they started the moment the war started. And they thought they would finish it by December 1939. Finally, the film came out in September 1940. And, well, first you see here this poster for the film, The Eternal Jew. That is, this is not something, that was the name of the film, but that was also the idea. The Jew tries to dominate the world, to dominate history. Here is the capitalist side, the pieces of gold, and here is communism. And of course, the Eternal Jew is holding both in his hands and plotting both against humanity. And of course, he's plotting it in a sea of blood. Wenn du dieses Zeichen siehst, when you see that sign, Jude, and you see the background of blood behind it. And this is the repetition. The Jews, with their plots, are responsible for the war. And if they win, it's the end of all of us. And if we win that struggle, well, it's the end of them. That is, as Hitler prophesied in January 1939, if the Jews push the world again into a world war, it's not the Aryan people who will be destroyed, but the Jews will be exterminated. Now, that doesn't mean there was already a clear plan, but certainly he already used it as not only as a metaphor. And then he referred constantly to his prophecy. Now, back to this, you see the Drahtzieher, those who pull the strings. Es sind nur Juden, these are only Jews. I won't read you the text, but he shows Der Jude Bernhard Baruch, which was an advisor to Roosevelt. Der Jude Felix Frankfurter, he was a judge on the Supreme Court of the United States, also an advisor to Roosevelt. Der Jude Litvinov Finkelstein. Litvinov had been Soviet foreign minister until before the pact, Nazi Germany, Soviet Union. Litvinov was expelled by Stalin and Molotov replaced him. Molotov was not Jewish, of course, this was a sign. Der Jude Horbelisha, which was for a very short time the British Minister of Defense, or War Minister, whatever, but he was then replaced before the beginning of the war even, or immediately in early 1940, I think, or late 39, der Jude Walter Rathenau, who was the foreign minister of the Weimar Republic, but was assassinated by right-wingers in 1922. Der Jude Eisner Komanowski, the Nazis always gave the Jewish name, if they had one on hand. Eisner is the revolutionary who brought down the Wittelsbach dynasty in Bavaria in 1918. So, whatever you want to, one can really speak at great lengths about this. But look there, das jüdische Komplott. So they show how it all leads, how the Jew in the middle, in a sense, holds everything and leads. One doesn't see it very well here. You see, the Jew Baruch, whom we saw, Bernard Baruch, is.
You can take it.
Is influencing. Well, here is the Jew, and Hitler never spoke of the Jews. He spoke of the Jew, which means a kind of abstract principle. Whether the Jews were being killed was not the end of the struggle. The end of the struggle was to destroy the Jew. Practically, an abstract principle in history. I mean, that is really this idea of redemptive anti-Semitism. It is to redeem the world from the Jew. The Jew, anything which is even touched by the Jew is polluted, and has been so throughout history. So now has come the last moment for the last struggle to save humanity, to save Aryan humanity. So you see Bernard Baruch, through the banks, Schiff, Warburg, Kahn, Karp, I don't know. They also invented, has Roosevelt in his hands. The same Baruch has also Churchill in his hand. Now Finkelstein, this is an invention of the Nazis. The whole story about this Finkelstein, whom they took, who was a very simple Jewish businessman in New Jersey and wrote a book. So there they invented simply. But never mind, I mean, in the British House of Commons, 19 full Jews and over 90 half-Jews. So out of how many members, that I do not say. And here is Moses' Sohn, who's, I don't know whom they thought of, but clearly this Moses' Sohn is Molotov was the one who replaced Litvinov because Litvinov was a Jew. So this Moses' Sohn seems to be behind Molotov, which is quite a joke. And here you see Maisky, the Soviet ambassador in London, and Maisky, of course, influences Churchill. And here you see this Moses' Sohn going straight at Stalin. Die Mehrzahl der Volkskommissare der Sowjetunion sind Juden. The majority of the commissars, of the Volkskommissar, the ministers, let's say, of the Soviet Union are Jews. Von 403 regierenden Mitgliedern sind from 500 members probably of the Supreme Soviet, 406 are Jews. You know, I mean, they could say anything. And so it goes. It shows you simply the Jew in the middle of this web. You also had other posters with like tentacular animals. Here you have this. You see the Jew holding the world in its tentacles, which means you have to kill that animal, how do you call this, in order to otherwise the world will be strangled by it. Here it's interesting. Actually, come and see, I guess it's in Dutch, come and see the film, The Eternal Jew, which was shown in the cinemas in Amsterdam. It was shown in Paris, it was shown all over. But to say a word about the film, it didn't have much. It had some success, but not really as much success as, you don't have it, as Jesus, which was much better done, less horrifying. Der ewige Jude, the great Nazi production, came out with two other films. The Jesus, which was a story of the 16th or 17th century of a Jewish finance advisor to a Duke of Württemberg, I think, really playing havoc with the German population, with the dukedom and so on. Finally, he's, of course, he's raping a few beautiful German women. Ultimately, he's caught when the Duke dies and executed in a cage. And that was a blockbuster. At the time, I think tens of millions of people saw it. For the Ewige Jude, which came out a few weeks later, they all come. The first one was the Rothschilds. Then came Jesus, then came Der ewige Jude. People were not so hot on it because it was horrifying. The Jesus was good propaganda, telling more or less the same story, but in a story. And you didn't see anything horrifying. Here you had scenes which were unbearable. The best known scene is the rats, the Jews spreading from Palestine to the whole world, and then swarms of rats going through the sewers of the world, and Jews and rats, and Jews and rats. You saw the images like juxtaposed, and the rats looked pretty horrible. But the worst scene was at the end you see Jewish ritual butchers killing animals, and you see them laughing and with their clothes full of blood, and you see a cow, so with half cut head, practically dying in front of the camera, and the Jew laughs with his knife dripping with blood. Now this they filmed, they compelled these ritual butchers to do it in the Lodz ghetto, as they also filmed the Jewish prayers in the Lodz ghetto, in the synagogue there. So they were on, they did some of their work on location and tried to be as realistic, quote unquote, of course, as possible, and created such horror images that most people didn't want to see it. And there was a version for men where all the scenes were shown, and a version for women and children where the killing of the animals was not shown, because there were women who saw it, they fainted in the cinemas. So, I mean, the whole thing is both horrifying and has also, of course, a kind of comical aspect in its horror, but it was effective. It was effective even if, let's say, their Ewige Jude was not a big film success, the image which you see here was on posters all over the world, occupied world. And you cannot but have that image penetrating your mind, you know. The money on the one hand, the Soviet sign on the other, you dominate the world. So they penetrated the minds of people in every possible way. This was the most horrifying kind of hate propaganda I think that has been ever produced. Nothing that the Soviet Union produced had this kind of effect, nor any other regime that I know. In that sense, Goebbels and Hitler, who was a great propaganda kind of specialist, they prepared the ground in the sense that, you know, to kill people who are really part of this kind of group, after a while you get the idea that maybe you are really doing a great service to humanity.
Okay, thank you.